Welcome to the Shabbat class, the Parsha class. This Shabbat, the Parsha is Vayetze, and I have a personal story of Vayetze before we start with the text. When I was in rabbinical school, we had to spend a semester or two in Israel, and when I was in Jerusalem, it was when the Shalit family was camping in front of the prime minister's house, and that was the last. Well, it was almost their fifth year camping there, and my class met with the family. They went as a class, and I was asked because I was Israeli to write something for them and to read it for them. And it happened to be Parashat Vayetze. And Vayetze, of course, means to break free, to go out. And it was amazing that the timing of it. And I thought, when if I need to write something to the family, it's so it's so heavy. Where will I get my reference? So I looked at the parasha. I looked at the parasha, and I was shocked to find out how many times the word Gilad was in the parasha. And then I looked at the haftarah of this week's portion, and it has the word Gilad there as well. So I had to look at it as a sign. And when we met with them, I said, I wrote it down, and I said that I looked at the parasha, and there was five times the word Gilad that was, of course, his first name, Gilad Shalit. And I'm hoping that by the next Vayetze, but the next year Vayetze, he will Yetze, he will break free. And that actually happened. That year he was released. And it was really incredible experience for me to also see it in the parasha and to pray for the release and everything. And of course, when we're sitting here this year, 2025, and talking about Vayetze, how you break free, how you return home with all the hostages that were released. It is a different experience. It's an amazing experience. So we'll look at the text, and we'll see there's a mechanism of being free, something that the Talmud says there is a whatever happens to the forefathers will happen to is a harbinger, is a foreshadowing of what will happen to the children. So maaseh avot siman lebanim. So whatever happens to our parents will happen to us. That is a concept that the Talmud points out, that everything that happened to, in this case, to Jacob will happen to his children. So what happened to Jacob? Jacob, as we saw last parasha, he goes to Haran. He has to run away from his brother, and goes to because he stole, so to speak, the birthright. He has to run away to his uncle Laben in Haran. So he goes back to where Abraham came from, and and he what he really he's experiencing exile. So just like the children of Jacob will experience exile later on, he is the foreshadow of that. So he goes down to Egypt, or his own Egypt, for 20 years. So it starts with he is leaving, he's breaking out of Canaan, he's leaving Canaan, and then at the end he's going to leave Haran. So this parasha is the 20-year span of Jacob leaving and coming back. He's not yet crossing the river again. That will happen next Shabbat, but it's a full circle of leaving and leaving again. So it says that Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night, for the sun has set. So he's still according to the Talmud, he's still in the land in Canaan. He did not leave the land yet, but it's night and he lays down, taking one of the stones of the place. He put it under his head and lay down in that place. He had a dream, and the dream, a stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached the sky, and angels of God were going up and down on it. So the first question that the Talmud asks is, how come the angels go up first and not down? We would think that angels are in heaven and they need to come down first and then go up. But this ladder is the angels first go up and then angels come down. So one first concept that we have about angels is that, and we kind of talked about it in the context of the angels coming to Abraham's tent after he had the circumcision to prophesy that he will have the son the following year, him and Sarah, and then we saw that only two angels went to Sodom and Gomorrah. So the Talmud says angels come for one mission in this world. They don't have multiple missions. So the explanation here of angels going up and then down, the Talmud says these are different sets of angels. Those who went up were the angels of the land of Israel, because he was right at the border. He was about to leave the land. So the angels that were protecting, the guardian angels of the land of Israel, were going up back because they finished their mission. And then those of angels of abroad or diaspora came down now to walk with him or to accompany him on his journey outside the land. And actually, when he gives the blessing many years later to his children, actually to Ephraim and Manasseh, the children of Joseph, he tells them, may the angel that protected me will protect you. So they are in the diaspora, right? They're in Egypt, and that angel that walked with him through his diaspora and protected him and brought him back, he wishes that angel to protect them in their diaspora. So they go up and down. But the important thing about also this ladder that became a very famous ladder, the Jacob's ladder, is to tell us, and this is what he understands, that and this is, by the way, for him to encounter God separately, that God is the God of Abraham, the God of Jacob, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, that we keep saying in our prayers, and we don't bundle it together, right? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they each found God in their own way. And of course, Jacob is finding God right here. And this ladder points to the fact that there's a connection between heaven and earth. We don't live in a separate realm as much as we think. There is a what the in Latin it's called the axis mundi. There is a connection between the worlds. So it's the where heaven and earth meet. And of course, our mission in Judaism, which is a universal mission, of course, is to bring heaven to earth, is to be the messengers to channel God in this world. And how do we channel God? We bring heaven to earth. We show that every heavenly or earthly action should be guided by heavenly action or cause or commandment and so forth. So that's the ladder. So he dreams about this ladder, and the angels go up and down, and and the Lord was standing beside him. And he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The ground on which you are lying, I will assign to you and to your offsprings. Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. Wow. So this is an amazing blessing, and there are many songs that repeat this phrase, Yama v'kedma tzafona v'negba. So Yama, so those directions in English in translation is just east west, but in Hebrew they are they connotes directions that are unique to the land. So he's pointing out to the land too. He's giving him signs of the land when he says, "This is the land that I will give you." So Yama, which means west, is the Mediterranean, the Yama. Um, and then I'll let Yehudit sing the song. Um, Yama is the Mediterranean. Kedma is the east. So Kedem, the word Kedem in Hebrew is from before, Kadima, what came before. And it also a another reference to where things start. So where do things start? Where the sun rises. So it's the same idea as where the sun rises. Kedem, Kedma, Tzafona is north, and it actually Baal Tzafon. So it was the area that we call now north, but Tzafon was the area. And actually, there's an idol called Baal Tzafon that there was an idol, a pagan idolatry there. And then Negba, which is the south, is actually the Negev. So it's the desert of the Negev. So which means that he's not just saying there'll be someone somewhere that is no direction. This is where you will come back. So what he's promising him, one of the main anxieties, of course, that we have in our lives as human beings is what will happen to us. We're embarking on a trip, we're embarking on new reality, on a new job, or transitioning out of a job, or moving to a new house. All these things, of course, are anxiety ridden, and they are the main anxiety filled in our lives. So, of course, Jacob is leaving his land. He's leaving his father's house, his parents' house. He's leaving everything behind. He has his knapsack and a staff. That's what he says when he comes back. He says, "I crossed the river, the Jordan, with my knapsack and my staff." So um, he has nothing, and there's no GPS. There are no health insurance, no hospitals, no nothing that would give him any insurance or assurance that he's going to be okay. So this dream of God revealing himself to him and saying that not only will you come back, but you'll have a great multitude that will come out of you. So that's an amazing assurance. Also, this is the foreshadowing of what happened to um, or what happened to Abraham is a foreshadow of this as we introduce this concept of Maaseh Avot Siman Babanim, what happens to the parents will happen to the children. So he now comes back. He leaves like Abram had to leave his parents' house. And then he said, "You shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants." Okay, so we heard that before, of course, with Abraham, that he who will bless you will be blessed, and he who will curse you will be cursed. Remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. Okay, so this is an amazing assurance. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. And by the way, this is the blessing that we used all this 2 years when we were praying for the return of the hostages. We quoted this phrase saying, "I will not rest until I have done what I promised you," meaning bringing you back to this land. So Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is present in this place, and I did not know this." Shaken, he said, "How awesome is this place? This is done. This is none other than the abode of God, and that is the gateway to heaven, the gate of heaven." So, and that's the axis mundi that we were talking about, that ladder. He realizes there is an actual connection between heaven and earth. Now, pretty much all Kabbalah is based on this situation, this scenario with the sulam, with the ladder, is the basis for Kabbalah. Chassidut, which is of course basing itself on Kabbalah, is a that is the point that they are emphasizing the most, that there's a direct connection between heaven and earth, and not only that we're affected by heaven, but there are angels who go up too. So we are also affecting heaven. So there are two-way ropes that we affect each other. And actually, the main interpretation on the Zohar, on the main body of Kabbalah, is called Hasulam. Hasulam, the ladder, based on the Jacob's ladder, that there's a direct connection. And of course, this would be the place that we believe that the temple would be built. So he's now at Mount Moriah, where Abraham, his grandfather, came there, and the binding of Isaac. So there are actually interpretations that say that he was looking for that place. This was not accidental that he met the place, because it says Vayifga bamakom. He encountered the place. So in Hebrew, it's he. It sounds like it's a specific place. So he was actually looking for that place because that was the place of the covenant with God. So he was looking to meet God. He was searching. And that makes total sense because Abraham was met with God, or God called on him only after he took the first step. That's how faith works. God does not call you first, because if God would have called you first, then he it really takes away your freedom of choice. Because if you encounter God, of course, that is a profound experience. And then God doesn't want to do that. God wants us to take the first step, whatever it is, the best step we can. So he leaves his house. He's searching for the place of God where Abraham met God, and then and God then meets him there. It also makes sense thematically that this is the place that heaven and earth meet. So it's the place of meeting. And of course, eventually the temple is called originally the tent of meeting. So it really is about that spot of heaven and earth meeting. So then, this is the gate of heaven, and then he rose up in the morning, early in the morning. Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on the top of it. He named that site Bethel. Bethel means the house of God, but previously the name of the city had been Luz. So this is an interesting, of course, idea that Jerusalem was not always Jerusalem. The original name of Jerusalem was Luz, and a couple of things about it. So the stone itself that he puts there could have been the stone that we now say was the belly button of the world, that God created the world out of it, and that's under the shrine, which is the Dome of the Rock, or the Golden Dome. And it's interesting because when later on King David, buys Jerusalem and moves the capital from Shiloh. And Shiloh is also one of the names of the Messiah. Um, he moves the capital from Shiloh, and he buys Jerusalem, and he changes its name. But Luz, interesting, the name Luz is the same name as the little bone at the back that connects our skeleton to the head. So it really is between the heaven and earth in our body. Our body is designed that way, that our head is in heaven, is like the sulam, like the Jacob's ladder, and the Kabbalah that believes in it. If you ever seen the Kabbalistic chart that starts with the head, they compare that ladder to the body, a human body that goes from the head, which is the in heaven, and the feet that are on the ground. So that lose the little bone in the back that connects the head to to our body, is the same name. So it's a very interesting idea. And Not surprisingly, this will be the bone that the resurrection will come through. So when at the time of the resurrection, that bone will expand and will grow the rest of the body. So heaven and earth will connect and will spread. Um, the same kind of idea as um, God tells Jacob that he will spread west, east, north, and south. It's the idea of Vayetze, that you will come out, you will break out of your limits. So this is a very profound experience. So in a sense, it will be an experience of resurrection because he goes to exile, and exile from the kind of the Jewish perspective is some sort of death. It's you go down spiritually, and then coming back, just like coming back out of Egypt, was an experience of a resurrection. So this whole experience here that Jacob has with God is you're going to go down, you're going to be somewhere else, and then I'll bring you back and bring you back in a very profound way. So this is, in a sense, the story of the Jewish people. We've gone through those cycles. And last Shabbat, we talked about how, with the Midrash that says that we as Jewish people follow the lunar calendar and not the solar calendar, for that reason that we have these cycles of disappearing and coming back, disappearing and coming back. So Jacob is now going through that cycle in his life. So he says, Jacob then made a vow saying, if God remains with me, if he protects me on this journey that I'm making and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, the Lord shall be my God. Wow. So he's almost making trying to make an agreement with God. If kind of an if statement. So some commentators say that maybe that indicates some flaws in his faith because he's making a contract with God. If you will do this for me, I will do this for you, and not just say "Hineni, here I am," and do whatever you will. But and then he says, and this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall be God's abode, and of all that you give me, I will set aside a tithe for you. Okay, so this is an incredible, very loaded phrase because what he's saying is if you bring me back and you protect me. So listen, it's not just in order to do what he wants to do, he has to come back healthy and physically be back in the land. So that makes sense. But he's also saying something very interesting that the commentators point out when he says, "If you give me bread to eat and clothing to wear." So of course we need the basics. So on the simple reading of it, of course, it means that God will provide for him the basic needs. But in a deeper explanation, that could mean that he's asking God not just to provide for him the basic needs. What he's asking, bread, they say, is Torah, and clothing is the tefillah, the talit, the prayer shawl. So it means that he will stay connected to God, because if God brings him back physically to the land, that's not enough. He needs to stay connected to God on the learning and the spiritual level. And where he's going, to Laban's house, the uncle that will try to cheat him left and right, and uproot the that connection from him. So for 20 years he would have to sustain that and still be connected. And actually, when he comes back and he speaks to Esau, it would be next Shabbat. He said, "With Laban, I lived with Laban. I dwelt with Laban." But the word "I dwelt with Laban" in Hebrew is garti, and garti has the numerical value of 613, which means what he was trying to say. And Gadi also, the meaning of the word is, I was, not only did I dwell with with somebody, I was afraid. Lagur is to also be afraid. So it's all together. It's three things in one, three meanings in one word. I lived with him. I was afraid, but I kept the 613 commandments. So this is what he's on a deeper level asking God to do, to bring him back complete on a spiritual level. And then he will build the house of God on that spot. But what he says is incredible. What he says is that I will build God's abode on top of the stone, and of all that you give me, I will set aside a tithe. So what is that? What does that mean? He would build the house of God on the foundation of that stone. And what does that mean, that stone? The foundation of that stone? What it means is that stone is a charitable stone, right? Because God met him there, the prophecy of God, and he's asking God to protect him. And God says, I will protect you on your journey. So therefore, it's a matter of the relationship between heaven and earth. This is incredible. This is the best clue of what we have to do in life. What is really, when we are following God, when we build our home to serve God, Jacob is telling us this right away. He said, I will tithe from whatever you give me. Now, the word tithing in Hebrew has even a deeper meaning, because the word 10% or tenth, maaser, we are now in chapter 29 in Genesis, and Jacob resumes his journey and came to the land of the Easterners. There before his eyes was a well in the open. Three flocks of the sheep were lying there beside it, for the flocks were watered from that well. And of course, we were talking about the well as a meeting place of our foreparents, and the well as a symbol of Torah, shared ethics, um, shared um, ideas. And when all the flocks were gathered there, the stone would be rolled from the mouth of the well to the so the sheep watered. Then the stone would be put back to its place on the mouth of the well. So what the Talmud tells us is this is was a very heavy stone, because people didn't want the well to just be available, because if that were the case, then first come, first serve, and then the water could go lower, and they didn't want to do that. So to create more uh, kind of a just environment, they waited until all the flocks gathered there, and then they would all move the stones together. So one shepherd couldn't move the stone by themselves. But then Jacob didn't want, he came upon it, and he didn't want Rachel to wait. So Jacob said to them, "My friends, where are you from?" And they said, "We are from Haran," meaning where he was headed. And he said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" So the Talmud is uh, sees something here that is missing. He's asking them if they know Lavan ben Nahor, but it actually Nahor was his grandfather, not his father. His father was Betuel, but Betuel, according to the Talmud, was such a corrupt person that he didn't even want to mention his name. So they said, "Yes, we do." He continued. So they didn't say anything else. They didn't want to say good or bad. And is he well? And they answered, "Yes, he is." And they're his daughter Rachel. So they're pointing to his daughter Rachel coming with her flock. He said, "It is still broad daylight, too early to round up the animals, water the flock, and take them to pasture." So that's the idea, that they came very early to wait for everybody. So, of course, that was a hassle. That's what they had to do. So, but they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are rounded up. Then the stone is rolled off the mouth of the well, and we water the sheep." Right? Same idea we talked about. While that he was still speaking with them, Rachel came to her father's with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. So again, the fact that she was a shepherdess, we talked about it in Rebecca's context last Shabbat, when it was about meeting a couple of weeks ago, when it was about the meeting of Abraham's Abraham's servant and Rebecca at the well. There we said, why should she be at the well? She could have sent a servant to do that. But we said that God told her to go that day. But here it says that Rachel was the shepherdess. This is what she wanted to do. And to be a shepherd is to be a charitable person, is to take care of the animals, to take care of sheep. Sheep are animals that are very obedient. They're not only obedient, they are they are almost defenseless. They can't really protect themselves. They don't have any mechanism of, just like a lion can protect themselves, a rhinoceros can protect themselves. Sheep can hardly protect themselves. They can't run away fast. They don't have claws. They don't have anything to protect themselves. So not only are they obedient, they are defenseless. So if you're a shepherd or a shepherdess, it means that you are a protector, you are a charitable person. And when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and the flock of his uncle Laban, Jacob went up and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well. So he was very strong, or if you will, he used the name of God to push the stone, and watered the flock of his uncle Laban. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and broke into tears. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. So now this is again, it's another case where um, somebody meets at the well, probably the same well, and they run back to Laban's house to tell them, I met somebody at the well. On hearing the news of his sister's sons, Jacob, Laban ran to greet him. He remembered him and kissed him and took him into his house. He told Laban all that had happened, and Laban said to him, You are truly my bone and flesh. So for a minute, Laban shows signs of being a good person, a charitable person, to take Jacob into his house. They didn't have email back then, as you know. I know, shockingly, but so the only way for him to know the story of Isaac and what happened with his father, with his brother Esau, and the stealing of the blessing is to just convey the story. So he conveys the story, and when Laban first runs out, the commentators say he probably thought he's bringing money too, because he's clearly Isaac was a very wealthy man, and he thought it was time for them to make the shidduch, and they were designated for each other. The Midrash said that Isaac designated um, Jacob for Rachel, the younger one, and Esau was designated for Leah. And that's why we see that Leah means tired, but it says that her eyes were soft. And the Talmud says from crying, because she cried a lot because she did not want to be matched with Esau. So when Jacob came, originally Laban thought that they came to do the matchmaking and that he's bringing the nedunya, the money to to buy the wife. So the endowment. So he runs to greet him, and then when he hears the story, he still brings him back in, and then he invites him to not just stay. Jacob says, "I want to, you know, I don't want to eat." I don't want to just be gifted. I want to work for you. And Laban said, okay, you can work for me. And Jacob offers to work for Rachel for 7 years. And he works for Rachel for 7 years. And then at the end of 7 years, because Rachel probably was still very young and not in uh, marital age, and so one of the opinions is that she was really a young kid, and 7 years meant that she was 5 years old, or actually, yeah, she was 5 years old. So she had to become 12, bat mitzvah, and in different cultures, like my parents' culture and many other Jewish places, the bat and bar mitzvah was the age of marriage, and they actually married at 12 and 13. So puberty, maturity, sexual maturity was the marital age. In some places, like in Yemen, they wanted to marry them very early as possible too, because otherwise they would be taken as orphans if their parents died. So if they had their own household, they would be protected that way. So, but nonetheless, she was probably 5 years old, and he said 7 years. So until she reaches marital age and he can marry her. So Laban agrees, but when it was time to give him Rachel, he switches on him and he gives him Leah. In the morning, he wakes up and he realizes it was Leah.
Can
And
I
of
ask
course, yes, go ahead.
I can ask a question? I don't want to
Please.
interrupt.
Yes.
So you're saying that, or rather, it says that she was 5 years old and he wanted to marry her?
Well, he wanted her to be designated to him, not yet at 5. That's why he said, I will work for you for 7 years until she reaches the age of 12.
I see. And then Laban adds another 7 years onto that.
So what happened was after Laban switches on him, he wakes up in the morning, and of
Right.
course Leah had to be part of this scheme with her
Mhm.
sister Rachel too, and part of what the kind of the way that we treat Rachel as a good-natured woman is that look at what she did for her sister. She knew that if she marries Jacob, Leah may not marry or be will be designated to somebody else that she didn't want to marry. So she gives her the preference. She was older than her. So
So Rachel gives Leah the preference,
yeah, because she
but
was
she's only
to
five
be
years
the
old.
no, at that point she's at least 12,
12?
right? The day of the marriage, he works for her for 7 years. So the
Mm-hmm.
day that she was given to him,
Mm-hmm.
Laban switches on him,
Right.
gives him
Mm-hmm.
Leah, her
Mm-hmm.
sister.
Right.
And when he wakes up in the morning and he sees that it was Leah, he goes to Laban. He says, "Why did you switch on me?
Right.
Cheated."
Mm-hmm.
And Laban said, kind of one thing on the surface and one he alludes to. He said, "Yes, but we can't give the younger before the older.
Mm-hmm.
This is our rule.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that." So, well, he had 7 years to tell him that, and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what he says is, if you want Rachel to work for me another 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So he gives him Rachel that same day,
Mm-hmm.
and he has to work for him for another 7 years. So at this point, he's there for 14 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the
Mm-hmm.
most of the children are born. And then after 6 more years, at a certain point, Jacob wants to, he said, I worked for you.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes up with this with a very kind of a famous expression. He said to Laban, I up to now worked for you, for your house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When will I start working for my own house? When
Mm-hmm.
will I start לעשות לביתי, to do for my own home?
Mm-hmm.
And so he offers Laban kind of a deal. He says, "You give me
Mm-hmm.
all the flock that you reject,
Mm-hmm.
all the rejects.
Mm-hmm.
I will start my." It's almost like give me your tired and your poor, and I will accept them, and I'll do what I can with them. And he does, and he becomes very successful. And at the end, he realizes that no matter how successful he'll always be under the thumb of Laban,
Mm-hmm.
who says that doesn't matter what you've gained, the gain is mine. He treats him as a slave, essentially, that it's not his gain, it's Laban's gain, because the law of slaves is that if you came in with nothing, you leave with nothing. You can stay a slave for the rest of your life, but you leave with nothing. So, so
And those slaves can be can be still considered Jews,
yeah, it could be a
that
no,
they were
no.
Jewish.
Later on, the rule is changed to a Hebrew slave after Sinai, not right now. After the law is given in Sinai, then it changes to there's a time limit put on it that after 6 years, the Sabbath, you leave on the Sabbath. So you can be a Hebrew slave for a maximum of 6 years, which is an interesting thing because I actually never put it together. After the 14 years that he works for his wives, there are 6 years that he still remains in Laban's house
Mhm.
as sort of a slave.
Right.
But then there's a limit to it. So he one day he wakes up and he says to his wives, "We have to leave," and they run away. And that's the other Vayetze. This is where that story completes itself. That he ran away 20 years ago from his brother, from his land, and now he's running away. Vayetze, same word, from Laban's house. So he returns. He returns to return to his land, and Laban chases him and says, "What did you do? And I can kill you now. And you stole my daughters. You stole my grandchildren." And but the angel of God appears to Laban, says, "Don't do any harm to him." And Laban and Jacob eventually make an agreement, and he lets him go. And that's how it ends for this week.